darkness. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that moves. The camera slowly pushes through a moonlit forest in 1462. The trees here aren't just trees. Every single one has something impaled on it. A hand, a skull, a shattered rib cage. Dozens of frozen faces twisted in a screen that died years ago. This place has a name whispered only in terrified whispers. The Forest of 1,000 Screams. And at the center of it, a rider approaches an Ottoman scout. He thinks he's alone. He thinks he's here to map enemy territory. Then he sees it. A clearing, filled with 20,000 bodies on stakes. A valley of death stretching farther than his torchlight can reach. The smell hits him like a physical punch. And that's when he drops to his knees and whispers, "Ya Allah, this is not a man. This is a demon." The demon he's talking about? Vlad III, Vlad Drăculea, Vlad the Impaler. But this story, it doesn't start here. It starts with a boy, a frightened boy locked in a dungeon far away from home. A boy who would learn, day by day, how to become the monster the world needed him to be. The boy with the shadowed name. He was born in 1431, in a fortress high above the mountains of Transylvania. Thunder that night wasn't normal thunder. Villagers later said they heard two sounds, thunder outside, and something like a beast roaring from inside the castle walls. His father, Vlad II Dracula, was a warrior, but also a man with secrets. He belonged to a mysterious brotherhood called the Order of the Dragon, a society sworn to fight the Ottoman Empire, but rumored to practice rituals most Christians would fear. When Vlad III was born, the midwife refused to touch him at first. His eyes were too dark, too sharp, too cold. One guard swore the newborn smiled, a full smile, before crying. No one believed him. They should have. By age 5, Vlad learned that life wasn't fair. He saw betrayal before he even understood what betrayal meant. His father, desperate to secure peace, made a deal with the Ottoman Sultan. A deal that involved giving away his own sons. Vlad, age 11. Radu, age 7. They were sent as political hostages to the Ottoman Empire. A guarantee that their father would behave. Except, Ottoman hostages didn't live in nice rooms with tutors. They lived in stone cells, cold, damp, and crawling with rats. Every night, Vlad heard screams, not from prisoners, but from boys like him, hostages from other kingdoms. If a king disobeyed the Sultan, punishments fell not on the king, but on the children. Vlad learned very quickly, pain was a language, and power was the only translator. The Chamber of Lessons. The Ottomans didn't just torture boys. They educated them. Sword training in the morning, whipping in the afternoon, psychological torment at night. If the boys cried, guards laughed. If they resisted, guards beat them until they couldn't stand. And if they showed fear, God helped them. But Vlad didn't cry, not once. One guard later said, "That boy." He had the eyes of someone who already died once. Radu, his younger brother, broke quickly. He adapted, obeyed, even befriended the Prince Mem, the future conqueror of Constantinople. But Vlad, he bided his time. He watched everyone. Guard movements, keys, weaknesses, schedules. He studied cruelty not as a victim, but as an apprentice. Every scream he heard, every corpse he saw dragged through the halls, etched something permanent into him, something sharp, something dark, and it waited. One night, something happened that historians still argue about, but the most accepted version is this. A guard dragged a boy, maybe 8 or 9, into the training yard. He was too weak to fight, too sick to stand. The guard shoved a spear into Vlad's hands and ordered him to practice impalement. Vlad refused. The guard smiled, and beat him until his vision went white. Eventually, broken and bleeding, Vlad lifted the spear. The boy whispered, "Please, make it fast." That was the moment something inside Vlad changed. Something snapped, not in grief, not in mercy, but in fascination, the mechanics of fear, the physics of pain. He studied the process, observed what angle killed faster, what angle killed slower. By the time the boy died, Vlad wasn't crying. He was thinking, calculating, learning. And when the guard took the spear back, Vlad whispered, "You did it wrong." That was the day Vlad III became the world's future impaler. The escape no one expected. When Vlad's father was murdered back in Wallachia, the Ottomans released Vlad, hoping he'd become their puppet king. They miscalculated. Vlad walked out of the empire alive, but left his childhood humanity buried there forever. He returned home not as a boy, but as a weapon. The silent forest. The boy rides deeper into the dark Transylvanian forest. The trees are tall, black silhouettes, bending like they're whispering secrets about him. The wind grows colder. Even the horse feels uneasy, stepping reluctantly. Vlad keeps hearing it metal, scraping, slowly, repeated. Shek, shek, shek. He grips the reins, eyes scanning the fog. But the sound isn't coming from ahead. It's coming from the trees. Shapes appear, shadows dangling. As the fog thins, Vlad finally sees them. Bodies, dozens of them, hung upside down, hands tied, throats cut. A message left for travelers. A message that Vlad reads with terrifying calmness. He isn't frightened. He isn't disturbed. He simply watches. And then he whispers, "Ottomans." The fear that exists in normal men, it doesn't live inside this boy. Inside him, something very different is growing. The Wolf boy reputation months pass. Villages start talking about a boy in the mountains who trains alone, fights wolves, drinks from frozen streams, and carries a wooden stake like a walking stick. Peasants call him Vlad Drăculea, the son of the dragon. At night, he sneaks into Ottoman scout camps, just to listen, just to study. He watches how soldiers move, how they sleep, how they guard their food. He doesn't attack. Not yet. He collects details, patterns, weaknesses. The boy isn't just angry. He's learning how to survive his enemies before he ever fights them. The first kill happens suddenly. 3 Ottoman scouts spot him near a stream. They don't see a threat, they see a lost kid. One soldier laughs, another grabs his arm. The third reaches for a rope. They plan to take him back as a slave. Vlad stands perfectly still, as if nothing is wrong, like he's frozen. Then, lightning fast, he drives a sharpened branch straight through the soldier's throat. The sound is wet, violent, shocking. The other 2 reach for their blades, but Vlad leaps like an animal, using teeth, nails, knees, whatever he can. When it's over, the stream turns red. He sits beside the bodies, breathing hard, not crying, not panicking, just thinking. And then he whispers the same word again, but with a tone that chills the air around him. Ottomans. This moment becomes the spark. After this day, Vlad is no longer the boy who escaped. He becomes the boy hunting the empire. The oath of stone. At a ruined stone monastery, Vlad lights a torch and kneels. The walls around him are cracked, blackened, and abandoned, just like him. He carves a sentence into the stone floor. For every Romanian life taken, a Turkish soul will answer. He keeps cutting until his hands bleed. The vow is insane, impossible, unrealistic, but that's exactly why he believes it. Some men take oaths out of duty, some out of pride. Vlad takes his oath out of something deeper, a hunger for justice twisted into revenge. The birth of the Impaler's mind, Vlad begins experimenting with ways to terrify soldiers. He watches how animals react to certain sounds. He studies how people panic in confined spaces. He tests how long a body survives when pierced in different places. He isn't killing for pleasure. He's killing to understand fear. He's building a method, a system, a signature. The thing he will one day become infamous for has already formed in his mind long before he becomes a king. The stake, the height, the angle, the duration, the message. He studies every detail. He wants to create a punishment so horrifying that an entire army will collapse before the battle even begins. Not by swords, not by arrows, but by dread. The return of the brothers. One night, a group of riders approaches his hideout. Vlad grabs his stake, ready to attack, but then he hears a familiar voice. It's his older brother, Mircea. With him are a handful of loyal knights. They escaped the political chaos back home and tracked him for weeks. Mircea stares at Vlad, shocked. The boy is almost unrecognizable. Skin hardened, eyes darker, movements sharper. Mircea says, "Brother, come home. We need you." But Vlad answers calmly, "If I return now, I return weak. Let me become something they fear first." Mircea understands. He doesn't agree, but he understands. He leaves him there in the mountains because he realizes something chilling. His little brother isn't on a path to reclaim the throne. He's on a path to become a weapon. The camera moves through the silent forest again. But this time, the trees are not filled with bodies. Now the bodies lie on the ground. 3 Ottoman scouts. A single sharpened branch standing upright like a crude stake. And Vlad walking away into the fog, leaving behind the first chapter of the legend that the world will later call Vlad Gepek, Vlad the Impaler. The chains return, years pass. Vlad grows stronger, sharper, more dangerous. But fate isn't finished breaking him yet. One morning, while tracking Ottoman scouts, he's ambushed by a full patrol. There's no running, no hiding. 10 soldiers surround him with spears. For the first time in years, he hesitates. Not out of fear, out of confusion. How did they find him? The commander answers that question by tossing something on the snow. A torn piece of cloth. His brother Mircea's colors. The Ottomans didn't stumble on him. They were guided. Betrayal is a wound he feels more deeply than the metal shackles they lock around his wrists. The soldiers strike him, bind him, drag him across the mountains. The boy who vowed to hunt an empire is once again a prisoner of it. The Ottoman court, Istanbul. Marble corridors, gold ornaments, perfume masking the smell of blood beneath. Vlad is thrown before Sultan Murad II, the same man who once held him as a child hostage. Murad studies him carefully. The boy he once controlled now kneels with the posture of someone who cannot be broken. Murad smiles. "You killed my scouts." Vlad lifts his head slowly. "Just 3. A guard kicks him in the ribs, but Vlad doesn't react. Murad sees something he didn't expect. This prisoner isn't afraid. He's observing the room, memorizing exits, guards, weapons. The Sultan leans forward. "You will not leave this court alive unless you kneel to me as protector of Wallachia." Vlad replies, "Wallachia needs no protector. It needs a cleansing." The room freezes. The Sultan gives the order. "Take him to the fortress, Tokat Fortress." The fortress is carved into a mountain, cold, damp, a place built not for death, but for breaking minds. Cells barely large enough to sit, chains bolted into stone, dark corridors echoing with distant screams. Vlad is locked inside a narrow chamber where daylight never enters. The guards laugh, predicting he will beg within a week. But Vlad does something unexpected. He begins counting. Every stone, every crack, every drop of water that falls from the ceiling. He keeps his brain alive by studying suffering, not avoiding it, mastering it. The guards devise new ways to torment him: starvation, whipping, isolation, mock executions, forced prayers to humiliate him. But during the torture sessions, Vlad watches the guards' techniques with unsettling curiosity. He notices how long a man screams before passing out, how pain changes when applied slowly instead of quickly, which injuries kill instantly and which prolong suffering. They think they are breaking him, but they are training him, crafting the very monster they fear most. The dangerous friendship. One guard stands out, a young recruit named Arslan. He's not cruel like the others. He's curious, confused by Vlad's refusal to break. Over weeks, Arslan begins speaking to him through the cell bars. He tells Vlad stories about Turkish politics, military routes, garrison numbers, information prisoners should never hear. Vlad listens silently. Arslan believes he's bonding with a fellow human. He doesn't realize that Vlad is collecting data, not for escape, for war. The Sultan's decision years pass. Yes, years. Vlad grows into a man inside that fortress. The Sultan receives news. Wallachia is collapsing into chaos. Boyars rebel. Borders are unprotected. Taxes fail. They need a prince who can terrify the nobles into obedience. And who better than the man raised on fear? Murad decides, free him. We will use the dragon's son to control his own people. But the guards whisper privately, he hasn't been tamed. He has been sharpened. The door opens. A guard tosses Vlad's old clothing at him, torn, blood-stained, faded. He steps into the sunlight for the first time in years. The brightness burns his eyes, but he doesn't blink. He breathes the air of freedom, but it doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like a battlefield he hasn't stepped on yet. Arslan, the young guard, approaches quietly. He whispers, why did you never beg? Vlad looks at him with a calm, cold stare. Because one day, I will return. He walks away, leaving the fortress behind, but not the memories, not the lessons, and definitely not the vengeance. He leaves as a prisoner set free. He returns as a king in the making, a king with a method of fear, a king the world will call Vlad the Impaler. Vlad steps into Wallachia after years of imprisonment, but the land he returns to is not the land he left. Villages burned, fields deserted, roads controlled by bandits, starving families begging beside abandoned churches. The Mongols raid from the east. Hungarian warlords threaten from the west. Boyar nobles fight each other like rabid animals. And the Ottomans, they wait for the right moment to swallow the land whole. Wallachia is not simply weak, it is dying. And Vlad arrives not as a savior, but as a storm. Vlad's first destination is the capital, Targovekt. Inside the citadel, the boyars celebrate drinking wine, laughing, arguing about who gets the throne next. They don't expect Vlad. They don't want Vlad, because Vlad remembers them. The betrayals, the conspiracies, how they murdered his father, how they buried his brother Mircea alive. He enters the hall silently. The music stops. The laughter dies. One boyar stands. Vlad? We didn't know you lived. Vlad steps forward slowly. I didn't, but something else did. His eyes alone silence the room. The nobles kneel, but not out of respect, out of fear. Vlad asks a simple question. How many of you loved my father? A forest of hands rises instantly. Wrong answer. Vlad walks forward, his boots echoing across marble. My father was hated. So why do you claim to love him? Is it because you are loyal? Or because you are liars? The boyars stay frozen. Vlad orders, all of you old and young will march with me at sunrise. One noble protests, we are not soldiers. Vlad leans close. Good. then you will die teaching your children the price of treason. At dawn, hundreds of nobles are forced to walk behind Vlad, not by soldiers, by fear. He marched them up the steep mountain path to Ponari Fortress, a climb brutal enough to kill elderly men and weaken the rest. Some collapse, some beg, some cry. Vlad doesn't slow down, not once. He studies who survives and who breaks. This march becomes the first sorting. Weak nobles fall. Corrupt nobles panic. Liars expose themselves. Wallachians begin whispering, "The prince has returned." But he is not the prince we remember. At the top, the ruins of his ancestral fortress stand like broken teeth. Vlad points to the shattered walls. "You will rebuild it." The nobles protest. Vlad smiles. "Consider this mercy. If my father had lived, he would have simply killed you." Day after day, Vlad forces the nobles to carry stone, mix mortar, rebuild towers, strengthen walls. Some die from exhaustion. Some fall from the cliffs. Some whisper rebellion. Vlad hears every whisper, not because they tell him, but because fear makes men sloppy. One night, 3 nobles try to escape. They descend the mountain quietly, thinking darkness will hide them. But Vlad is waiting. He doesn't shout. He doesn't accuse. He simply says, "You climbed my mountain, and now you will climb my stake." The next morning, the fortress courtyard displays the first 3 impaled bodies. Tall wooden stakes piercing through their torsos, angled so the victims die slowly. The workers freeze. The nobles collapse to their knees. Even the soldiers stare in silence. No prince in Wallachia has ever used punishment like this. But Vlad isn't repeating history. He's inventing a new one. A reign built not on negotiation, but on terror. Within days, the story travels across Wallachia like wildfire. Vlad is back. He impales traitors. He doesn't ask for loyalty. He forces it. The peasants don't fear him. They admire him. A ruler who punishes corrupt nobles is a rarity. But the nobles, they understand something far more terrifying. Every breath they take now depends on Vlad's mercy. A mercy he does not possess. The camera pulls back. Night. Ponari Fortress stands illuminated by torches. And in front of it, 3 bodies hanging on stakes, silhouetted against the moon. Vlad stands alone at the cliff's edge, cape blowing in the cold wind. He whispers, "Wallachia will not fall again. Not while fear breathes through me." He doesn't smile. He doesn't blink. He simply watches the stakes sway gently in the night. The first chapter of his rule has begun, and the world has not yet seen what he is truly capable of. The morning after the impalements, Wallachia wakes up with a new ruler, not crowned by ceremony, but by terror. Farmers whisper prayers. Merchants lock their doors. Children stare at the mountains, wondering if the stories are real. At first, people fear him. But then something unexpected happens. Crime drops overnight. Bandits vanish. Corrupt tax collectors flee across the border. For the peasants, this isn't tyranny. This is justice. And for the nobles, this is a nightmare with sharp wooden teeth. Vlad's first major act is not political ambition. It's revenge. Wallachia is plagued by a notorious bandit leader named Radu known for kidnapping villagers and burning farmhouses. Previous rulers failed to stop him. Vlad doesn't fail. He doesn't send a letter. He doesn't negotiate. He doesn't even plan a large campaign. He rides alone, before dawn, like a shadow among the trees. When the bandits wake, they see their camp surrounded by Vlad's soldiers, but they never hear the order to attack, because Vlad has already walked in, silent, focused. His hand grips a stake he carved himself. Minutes later, Radu's corpse is displayed at the crossroads, raised on a stake so tall it pierces the clouds of morning fog. Vlad leaves a message carved into a plank for those who prey on the weak. travelers whisper. The Impaler cleans faster than entire armies. Word reaches Vlad that a group of tax officials have been stealing from peasants. He invites them to a banquet, lavish tables, rich wine, roasted meat. They arrive smiling, believing they are being rewarded. Vlad plays the gracious host, pouring wine, asking questions, laughing politely. But slowly, his tone changes. He asks, "Tell me, should a ruler tolerate thieves?" The officials look at each other, confused. One stutters, "No, of course not." Vlad nods. Then he stands, lifts his cup and says, "Good, because I don't." Soldiers storm in. The banquet tables flip. Officials scream. Vlad watches them dragged outside as calmly as if watching dancers in a theater. Moments later, their bodies rise on stakes surrounding the feast they just enjoyed. Vlad sits back down at the head of the table. He finishes his wine. He does not flinch at the screams behind him. This is how law is restored. In a stunning experiment, Vlad orders a massive golden drinking cup placed in the center of a public square. He declares, anyone may drink from it, but if it is stolen, every thief in this land will join the boyars on the stakes. The world expects it to vanish instantly, but it doesn't. Not in a day, not in a month, not in a year. A single golden cup sits untouched in a square filled with peasants, merchants, and travelers. Because nobody dares touch anything that belongs to Vlad. Foreign travelers write, Wallachia has no crime, only fear. When plague arrives in a nearby village, Wallachia panics. People hide indoors. Merchants abandon markets. Priests ring bells warning of contagion. Vlad rides into the village wearing no protection except a cloth mask soaked in herbs. He burns plague-infected houses with his own torch, but not to punish, to stop the disease. Then he orders the sick carried to a quarantined hillside. But the thieves who loot the dead, he impales them beside the graves they robbed. A foreign chronicler writes, his justice is cruel, but his justice is equal. Vlad hasn't forgotten the nobles who destroyed his family. The mountain march in Part 4 was only the beginning. He summons the entire boyar class to the royal court for an Easter celebration. They arrive wearing jewels, velvet, gold thread cloaks. Vlad greets them with smiles, wine, music. Then, during dinner, he quietly asks, which of you murdered my father? The hall goes still. Nerves crack. Hands shake. Faces turn pale. One boyar collapses, sweating, unable to breathe. Vlad signals his guards. Doors close. Chains rattle. Torches dim. Nobody leaves. Nobody speaks. Nobody lies. At dawn, dozens of nobles are marched outside. The strongest forced into labor, the rest raised on stakes. This purge reshapes Wallachia completely. The land is no longer controlled by families of wealth. It is controlled by a single man. A man who has learned how to rule through terror, precision, and absolute willpower. The camera moves across Wallachia, a golden cup that nobody dares touch. Villages free of thieves, roads patrolled, fields protected, corrupt nobles reduced to ashes or corpses. And Vlad, standing before a massive stake field, torches flickering against the night sky. He says softly, a kingdom built in blood cannot be taken by fear. His eyes are steady, cold, unshakable. This is no longer the boy hostage, no longer the prisoner of empire. This is Vlad Gepek, the Impaler King, and his darkest chapters are still ahead. The Ottoman messenger one morning, a single Ottoman rider enters Wallachia, carrying a white banner of diplomacy. He strides into Vlad's throne room with an expression of superiority. He bows slightly and says, the Sultan reminds you, Wallachia owes tribute, 300 boys for the Janissaries, and gold. Vlad stares at him silently. The messenger grows nervous. This is the price of peace. Vlad stands up slowly, walks toward him, and says in a voice calm enough to freeze the room, "Peace is not bought. Peace is forced." Then he demands, "Remove your turban." The messenger refuses. "It is a holy symbol." "I cannot." Vlad signals his guards. "If he will not remove it, nail it to his skull." The hall erupts into screams. The messenger is dragged away, and the nail is driven through cloth, skin, and bone. This single act travels through the empire like lightning. The Sultan hears the news. He doesn't get angry. He gets quiet, which, for a ruler, is much more dangerous. Vlad knows what's coming. No tribute, no submission, no apology. He expects only one outcome. The Ottomans will invade, and they will bring an army the size of a nation. Vlad orders every blacksmith to work day and night. He strengthens the walls of Targovist. He deploys scouts across the Danube. He tells his soldiers, "We do not fight battles. We create nightmares." And so begins his most infamous strategy, psychological warfare. The night attack blueprint inside Ponari Fortress, Vlad gathers his commanders around a wooden table. He draws lines, arrows, numbers. He says, "Sultan Mehmed will march with at least 150,000 men. We cannot defeat them in daylight. We cannot defeat them honorably. So we will not fight with honor." A commander whispers. "Then how do we fight?" Vlad answers, "We poison wells, earn crops, hit at night, hit and vanish." This is not guerrilla warfare. This is terror engineering. He plans ambushes so intricate they resemble hunting traps. Because he understands one truth: an army that cannot sleep eventually cannot fight. The plague trick: before the Sultan's army arrives, Vlad captures several Ottoman scouts. Instead of killing them immediately, he does something shocking. He gives each of them food contaminated with plague corpses and sends them back across the river. Not one of them realizes what he's done. Days later, Mehmed's vanguard reports, "The soldiers are falling sick. We don't know why." The Sultan suspects nothing yet. Vlad is not trying to kill their army. He is trying to weaken morale before battle even begins. The forest of corpses. As the Ottoman army invades Wallachia, they expect resistance. They don't expect what they find instead: villages where food stores are burned, wells filled with poisoned animals, roads blocked with dead livestock, fields abandoned, and in the center of each village, one single corpse impaled, not to kill, but to send a message: "I know you're coming, and I'm ready." These stakes become the breadcrumbs leading men deeper into Vlad's trap. The Sultan marches. Sultan Mehmed II, conqueror of Constantinople, leads the largest invading force Wallachia has ever seen. 150,000 soldiers, janissaries, engineers, archers, war wagons, siege cannons. Compared to him, Vlad's force looks like dust in the wind. Ottoman generals laugh. "We will crush him in a single day." But as they push deeper into Wallachia, the laughter fades. No food, no water, no villages, no people. Only smoke, ash, and the smell of burned earth. Mehmed realizes he is not fighting an army. He is fighting a phantom. The night before hell, Vlad stands on a cliff overlooking the Ottoman camp. Torches glow like a sea of stars. His commanders tremble at the sight. One whispers, "How do we fight this many?" Vlad answers quietly, "We don't fight them. We break them." He points at the campfire lights. "At midnight, you follow me. No banners, no horns, only knives." And then he says the words that seal his legend. "Tonight, we turn their sleep into their grave." The camera descends slowly into the Ottoman camp. Tens of thousands sleep peacefully, not knowing death is marching toward them, silent as a shadow, relentless as revenge, led by a king whose rage has been sharpened for years. Vlad grips his sword, A cold wind blows. A torch flickers. He whispers, "For Wallachia." Imagine an entire room full of men, rich men, powerful men. Men who believed they controlled the kingdom. Men who thought Vlad was just a young, angry prince they could manipulate. They had no idea that tonight would become the most terrifying night Wallachia had ever seen. Because Vlad didn't just want revenge. He wanted a message carved into history with blood. The Feast of Smiles. The boyars arrive at the royal court wearing silk robes, gold necklaces, and fake smiles. They whisper behind their hands, "He won't last long, ... He's too young, ... We will replace him soon." But when they enter the grand hall, something feels wrong. The torches flicker low. No musicians are playing. No servants are moving. The air itself feels heavy. At the far end, on a raised platform, Vlad sits alone at the table, smiling. A cold, sharp smile. He gestures, "Come, eat, drink." The boyars sit, confused, but they obey. And the feast begins. A question with teeth. Vlad suddenly stands. Everyone goes silent. Then he asks one single question, soft, calm, deadly. "How many rulers have you betrayed?" The boyars freeze. No one answers, because they know. They murdered his father. They murdered his brother Mircea. They betrayed every ruler before him. Vlad lifts his cup. His voice becomes ice. "I'll tell you." He begins listing names, one by one. Every dead ruler, every coup, every act of treason. Each name lands like a hammer on stone. Some boyars tremble. Others look at the floor. Vlad sits down again and whispers, "Tonight, justice comes." The doors slam shut. Suddenly, boom, the castle doors slam shut. Boyars jump from their seats. But armed guards rush in, Vlad's loyal soldiers. Their orders. No one leaves the hall. The boyars realize this is not a feast. This is a trap. Vlad stands pointing at them. "You killed my father. You buried my brother alive. Now, Wallachia will bury you." The night of impalement. Vlad gives a single command. "Take them." Chaos explodes. Boyars are dragged screaming out of the hall. Some beg for mercy. Some swear loyalty. Some try to fight, but it's useless. Outside the hall stands a field of sharpened stakes, hundreds of them lit by torchlight, like rows of metal teeth waiting to bite. Vlad walks out behind them, calm, almost peaceful. One boyar screams, "Have mercy." Vlad leans closer, whispers, "I learned mercy from you," then turns away. The impalement begins. One by one, the boyars are lifted. Their screams echo across the night. Some die instantly. Others linger, hours, even days. This was the purge of 1457, the night Vlad destroyed the entire treacherous nobility in a single calculated strike. The march of the survivors. Not all boyars were executed. The old ones were killed, but the younger, stronger ones? Vlad had a different plan for them. They're taken chained on a brutal forced march of over 60 miles. Destination: Ponari Fortress, a broken ruin on a mountaintop. Vlad points at the ruins. Rebuild it. The boyars stare in shock. No tools, no rest. No food except scraps. And if anyone collapsed, they were impaled. Vlad watched from above, expressionless. Ponari Fortress was rebuilt with the blood and bones of the men who destroyed his family. When it was finished, Vlad spoke. "Now, your debt is paid." But it wasn't mercy, it was domination. Wallachia burns clean, word spreads across the kingdom. The boyars are gone. The old corrupt power is dead. A new ruler has risen, and that ruler is terrifying. Vlad begins reshaping Wallachia in his own image. Thieves are executed, instantly corrupt officials are impaled, lying merchants have their goods confiscated, tax fraud. means death traders are displayed on stakes at city gates. One German merchant wrote, "Wallachia felt like a kingdom ruled by death itself. But crime? Crime dropped to almost zero. People walked with gold in their pockets and slept with doors unlocked. Fear worked. The boyars were gone. The corrupt elite destroyed. Wallachia finally under one ruler. But Vlad's story, the darkest part of it, was still waiting, because a far greater enemy was coming. One that would test his cruelty and forge his legend, the Ottoman Empire, and the man who would become his greatest adversary, Sultan Mehmed II, the Conqueror. Before Vlad even lifted a sword, before he declared war, the Ottomans were already coming. Not with armies, not with cannons, not yet. They came first with something far more dangerous. A message demanding obedience, a message demanding tribute, a message telling Vlad to kneel, and the entire world expected him to kneel. But Vlad, he didn't kneel. He sharpened his stakes. It's early morning in Targovekt. Vlad is sitting in council when the doors open. Two Ottoman envoys enter. Tall turbans, silk robes, stone faces. The atmosphere in the hall changes instantly. Everyone knows the rules. When Ottoman envoys enter, rulers remove their hats as a sign of respect. But Vlad sits still, expressionless. The envoys bow slightly and speak. Sultan Mehmed II demands tribute. And your loyalty. Then they add something else. Custom requires that you remove your hat in our presence. Vlad leans forward, voice soft, but razor sharp. If you refuse to remove your hats, I will help you. The envoys smile politely, not understanding. Vlad gestures. Guards step forward, and in seconds, nails are hammered through the envoys' turbans into their skulls. They die where they stand. Vlad wipes his hands. Now your hats will never fall off. The message is clear. Wallachia will not kneel. The empire prepares. News reaches Constantinople. Sultan Mehmed II, the man who conquered Constantinople at 21, the man who commanded the largest force in the world, hears about the nailed envoys. He stands silently and smiles. So, the little prince has claws, but Mehmed is no fool. He knows Wallachia is small, weak, poor. He doesn't send an army. Not yet. He sends orders. Find everything about him. Spies enter Wallachia disguised as traders, travelers, monks. But Vlad grew up in the Ottoman court. He knew their methods. He knew their codes. He knew their disguises. And he built something terrifying. A secret network of assassins loyal only to him. They hunted the spies quietly, efficiently. Bodies vanished. Whispers spread. Vlad sees everything. The raids of blood. Vlad knows war is coming. But he refuses to wait. At midnight, he leads a series of lightning raids across the Danube. Villages loyal to the Ottomans burn. Garrisons are ambushed. Supply depots are destroyed. One Ottoman commander writes, "They attacked like wolves in the dark. Silent, unstoppable, leaving only fire behind." Vlad doesn't take prisoners. He leaves rows of impaled soldiers along the riverbanks. Dozens, hundreds. Each stake is a message. Cross this river, and this will be you. Mehmed's warning. Back in Constantinople, Mehmed receives the reports. He reads them one by one. Villages destroyed, soldiers executed, spies, missing envoys, nailed to the skull impalement forests growing along the Danube. He closes the last scroll. Then he speaks, "Prepare the army, not a small force, not a punishment squad." He prepares the full might of the Ottoman Empire. Over 150,000 men, one of the largest armies Europe had ever seen. All to crush one man, one prince, one nightmare wearing a crown, Vlad III. The night attack begins. Vlad knows the Ottoman army is too big to fight in open battle, so he plans something insane. A strategy no one else would even dare. A psychological war. A shadow war. A war fought at night, in forests, in fog, in silence. He begins poisoning wells, hiding spikes under leaves, setting false trails, releasing infected animals. Using plague victims as weapons, he turns Wallachia into a trap, a kingdom-sized trap. And then he prepares the final phase, the night attack, the most terrifying military operation in medieval history. The Sultan enters hell. The Ottoman army marches into Wallachia, but they don't find battles. They don't find resistance. They find silence, rotting corpses, abandoned villages, forests filled with stakes, wells filled with poison, roads littered with traps. Mehmed rides forward, uneasy. His general warns him, "My Sultan, this land does not want us here." But Mehmed continues. Behind him, 150,000 soldiers follow. Ahead of him, waiting in the dark, is a prince who knows every shadow, a prince who knows every secret, a prince who has turned terror into a weapon, and he is waiting for the exact moment, the perfect moment, to attack. In one night, one strike, one scream in the darkness, the night attack. Imagine walking through a silent battlefield, but the battle hasn't happened yet. You just feel it. The torches flicker wrong. The air feels tight. The night feels alive. This is how the Ottoman soldiers felt on the night of June 17, 1462. 150,000 men, marching into a darkness Vlad controlled like a puppet. And soon, they would swear an army of demons attacked them. But it wasn't demons. It was one man. The perfect night for a monster. The Ottoman camp stretches miles across the plain. Tents, torches, horses, cannons, endless soldiers. Most are already asleep. Others sit around fires, murmuring, "Where is Vlad? Why hasn't he attacked? Why is it so quiet?" Because Vlad made sure. No dogs barked, no birds sang, no villagers lived nearby. He killed everything that could make noise. The night belonged to him. Meanwhile, up on a ridge, wearing black armor and a wolf fur cloak, Vlad watches the camp. His men wait behind him silent. Vlad speaks. "Tonight, we kill the Sultan, a signal of hell." Around midnight, a single torch is raised behind Vlad. His soldiers tighten their grips on their weapons. Vlad lowers his voice. No mercy, no hesitation. Strike at the heart. Then he lifts his sword and points it at the Ottoman camp. A second torch flashes in the distance, then a third. The signal. Vlad's army moves, silent, fast, like shadows sliding down a mountain. One Ottoman guard blinks, sensing movement. He leans forward, and a spear hits him before he can scream. The night attack has begun. A darkness that screamed. The Ottomans hear nothing at first. Just wind, a hiss, a whisper. Then the earth explodes with screams. Vlad's cavalry hits the Ottoman camp like a hurricane made of steel. Tents collapse. Torches fall. Horses panic. Vlad rides straight into the chaos, cutting down soldiers in bursts. Fast, brutal, merciless, he moves like he's possessed. Eyewitnesses later swear he fought like a demon from the underworld. Soldiers run in every direction, shouting, "Vlad, V-L-A-A-D. The devil is here." But their terror only fuels him. The hunt for the Sultan. Vlad's plan is insane, but simple. Find the Sultan's tent and kill Mehmed II. End the war in one strike. To confuse the Ottomans, Vlad dresses his elite soldiers in Ottoman uniforms. In the darkness, no one can tell friend from foe. Ottoman units kill each other. Commanders scream orders that no one hears. The camp turns into a maze of death. Vlad slashes his way deeper. He sees a massive ceremonial tent ahead, Guards banners, silk walls, gold ornaments. The Sultan's tent. He charges. A guard tries to stop him. Vlad cuts him down in one motion. He pushes into the tent and freezes. It's empty. A decoy. Mehmed expected him. The Sultan sees the demon. Meanwhile, the real Sultan stands on a nearby hill, surrounded by elite janissaries. He watches the chaos below. Fires spread. Screams rise. Bodies fall. Mehmed whispers, "This is not war. This is madness." Then something catches his eye. A rider with long hair, black armor, a sword dripping blood, cutting through men as if they are shadows. Mehmed squints, and for the first time, he sees Vlad III with his own eyes. The man he thought was a nuisance is fighting like a mythical creature. Mehmed's general mutters, "My Sultan." He looks like Sean, but the general stops because Vlad suddenly turns and looks up, straight at the Sultan, across fire, across darkness, across hundreds of meters. Their eyes lock. For a moment, it feels like time freezes. And Vlad smiles. The withdrawal. Vlad tries to break through the final Ottoman guards, but the janissaries close ranks. There are too many. The surprise is gone. The target is protected. Vlad signals his men. They retreat in bursts fighting, falling back, fighting again. Not running, never running. They pull out before dawn. The Ottomans count the dead, thousands. Entire units wiped out. Commanders missing. Horse lines destroyed. One Ottoman wrote, "We did not fight men that night. We fought shadows. We fought death." But Vlad had failed the one goal he cared about. He did not kill the Sultan. The forest of the Impaled. The morning after the night attack, Mehmed advances cautiously. His army moves through a valley, and then abruptly stops, because ahead of them, stretching for miles, is something so horrifying that even Mehmed, the conqueror of Constantinople, feels fear. 20,000 impaled corpses, men, women, children, Ottoman prisoners, Wallachian traitors, all slowly rotting on stakes. The forest of the Impaled. Mehmed covers his nose. His generals look sick. One soldier vomits. The Sultan whispers, "What manner of man does this?" A janissary replies, "Not a man, a monster." Mehmed turns his horse and gives the order no one expected. We leave. Now, the greatest empire on earth retreats. The man who terrified an empire. Vlad did the impossible. He made the Ottoman Empire, the strongest power in the world, turn back. Not with armies, not with wealth, not with alliances, with terror. Pure, weaponized fear. But the Ottomans weren't done. And neither was Vlad. The war was not over. And the darkest chapter, the betrayal, the fall, the imprisonment, was still waiting. The betrayal, a king who was never meant to live. For a moment, it looked like Vlad had done the impossible. He terrified the Ottoman Empire. He forced the world's greatest army to turn back. He defended his kingdom with nothing but rage, fire, and fear. But dark stories never end at the peak. They end when the people closest to you decide you have become too dangerous. Vlad defeated an empire, but he could not defeat betrayal, especially when it came wearing the face of family, the price of terror. After the night attack and the forest of the Impaled, Wallachia is silent, terrified, but safe. No thieves, no spies, no traitors. No Ottoman soldiers, but terror comes with a cost. The peasants whisper, "Maybe he has gone too far." The remaining nobles whisper, "He rules like a demon, not a prince." Foreign powers whisper, "His reign cannot be allowed to continue." And in the shadows, a familiar enemy resurfaces. A rival prince, one connected to the richest nobles, one protected by the Ottomans. Vlad's own half-brother. Radu cel Frumos, Radu the Handsome, the brother who chose the empire. Vlad and Radu grew up together as hostages in the Ottoman court, but they became very different men. Vlad grew into a weapon. Radu grew into a diplomat. The Ottomans loved Radu. He spoke their language, studied their customs, obeyed their rules. And more importantly, the Sultan trusted him. So Mehmed II makes a decision. We could not conquer Wallachia by force, so we will conquer it with Radu. He gives Radu money, soldiers, noble supporters, assassins, propaganda, and sends him to take the throne. Not by battle, but by turning Vlad's own people against him. The rumors begin. Suddenly, Wallachia fills with whispers, strange whispers, whispers designed to destroy a king. Vlad has gone insane. Vlad drinks blood. Vlad will impale anyone who looks at him wrong. Vlad is cursed. Vlad wants to burn the kingdom. None of it true. All of it effective. Merchants fear him. Farmers hide from him. Nobles secretly switch sides. And every whisper, every rumor, comes from Radu's agents. Vlad is winning the war on the battlefield, but he is losing the war of the mind. The winter of 1462 hits Wallachia like a hammer. Famine, cold, diseases, empty fields, destroyed villages from the war. People begin blaming Vlad for everything. He tries to explain, "I did this to defend you." But fear doesn't listen to explanations. Fear listens to weakness. Radu arrives at the southern border with Ottoman troops. Thousands of Wallachians defect immediately, not out of loyalty, but out of terror. They fear Vlad more than they fear the Turks. Imagine that, a king so terrifying. His people choose an empire over him. The escape of a king. The nobles rise against Vlad. Radu marches in from the south. Ottoman spies swarm the villages. The population revolts. Vlad has no choice. He flees north, hoping for help from the Hungarian king, Matthias Corvinus. Vlad writes him letters begging for military support. But when Vlad arrives, Hungarian soldiers seize him. Matthias shows him a document, a letter claiming Vlad made a secret deal with the Ottomans. A letter proving Vlad is a traitor. A letter forged by Radu. Matthias doesn't even check if it's real. It's the excuse he needed. He orders, imprison Vlad. And just like that, the king who terrified an empire is thrown into a cell. The years in chains. For 12 years, Vlad is held captive. The cell is cold, wet, dark. He has no throne, no army, no allies. No light, nothing. And the worst part, the world forgets him. His enemies mock him. Where is the mighty Impaler now? Where are his stakes? Where is his terrible power? But one person never forgot him. His wife. She visits him secretly, brings him food, keeps his spirit alive. And eventually, even Matthias Corvinus begins to fear something. The Ottomans are growing stronger every year. Europe needs a weapon, and they know one man who was born to fight them. A monster, a nightmare, a king made of war. Vlad III. Matthias releases him and gives him a chance to reclaim his throne. But fate has one final twist.